The road wasn't empty. A real road accident horror story. I never used to believe in intuition, that weird, invisible sense that something is wrong, even when everything looks fine. But after what happened to me last winter on Highway 41, I listened to it every single time. 'Cause if I hadn't ignored that feeling that night, maybe I wouldn't still wake up hearing the sound of tires skidding on wet asphalt, followed by silence. It was January of last year. I was driving back from a late shift at the factory just outside of Madison, Wisconsin. It was about 1:30 in the morning, and the snow had been falling for hours. Not heavy, but steady enough that everything outside the headlights looked like static. My old silver Corolla didn't have the best tires, but I'd made this trip home 100 times. I knew every turn, every gas station, every faded billboard along the way. There's a stretch of that highway, about 20 miles between the last town and my exit. That S, just trees and darkness. No houses, no rest stops. People hate driving it at night, but for me, it was peaceful, quiet. Sometimes I'd even roll the window down just to feel the cold air hit my face, reminding me I wasn't dreaming. That night, though, something about it felt different. Okay? It's hard to explain, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Even my music didn't sound right. About 15 minutes into the drive, I noticed a pair of headlights behind me in the distance. They were far back, but in that kind of emptiness, any sign of another car feels noticeable. I kept driving, glancing occasionally at my rearview mirror. The car stayed behind me for several miles, keeping a consistent distance, not close enough to tailgate, but not far enough to disappear. I figured it was just another late-night driver like me, maybe someone trying to get home before the roads froze over. But when I took my exit toward my town, the headlights followed. Now, that wasn't too strange either. The road split toward 3 small towns. Still, the longer I drove, the more that car's presence started to feel deliberate. Every turn I made, it mirrored. When I slowed down, it slowed down. At one point, I even pulled onto the shoulder, pretending to check my phone. The other car slowed down too, then stopped about 50 feet behind me. No movement. No one got out. Just 2 white beams cutting through the snow. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe they were nervous about the icy road, too. Maybe they just didn't want to pass. So I pulled back onto the road. A few seconds later, so did they. That's when my stomach started to knot. I turned off the main road onto a back route that cut through the woods, a shortcut I usually avoided in the winter because it is rarely plowed. It was risky, but I wanted to see if they'd still follow. They did. The road narrowed to a single lane bordered by trees. My headlights swept across branches weighed down by snow, casting warped shadows that twisted and shifted like figures watching from the woods. The air felt thick, like I was driving underwater. After another mile or two, I saw something lying on the side of the road ahead. At first, I thought it was a deer. Wisconsin roads are full of them. But as I got closer, I realized it was a car. It was upside down in the ditch, half buried in snow. The headlights were still on, dim and flickering. I slowed down, and pulled over. My heart was pounding, but instinct took over. Someone might still be alive in there. I threw on my hazards, grabbed my phone, and stepped out into the freezing air. The silence was suffocating. Even the other car that had been following me pulled over behind mine, engine idling. I remember seeing the silhouette of a driver inside, but no one got out. The overturned vehicle looked like it had skidded and rolled. The windshield was shattered and snow had drifted inside. I leaned down, calling out, "Hey, can you hear me?" No answer. I circled to the driver's side and saw someone inside. A man slumped over the wheel. His head was against the airbag, unmoving. His face was pale, streaked with blood from a cut on his forehead. I tapped on the glass, shouting again. Nothing. Then I noticed something strange. The snow around the car was smooth. No footprints, no signs of someone having crawled out. Just untouched white, which meant the driver hadn't moved since the crash. I dialed 911, giving them the location as best I could. The dispatcher told me to stay there until help arrived, but warned it might take a while. The storm had caused multiple accidents. When I hung up, I turned toward the other car that had been following me. Its headlights were still on, engine running, but the driver's seat looked empty now. Froze. I hadn't seen anyone get out. No door had opened. There weren't even tracks in the snow between their car and mine. "Hello?" I called, voice shaking. No response.
The longer I stared, the more I started to doubt myself. Maybe they were sitting low, or maybe I just couldn't see because of the glare. But that creeping sense of wrongness came back stronger than ever. My breath was fogging in front of me, and for the first time, I realized how quiet it was. Not just the stillness of snow, but absolute silence. No wind, no engine hum, no ticking from my hazards. Then, suddenly, a sound creak. I spun around. The man in the crashed car had moved. At least, I thought he had. His head was now turned slightly toward me, eyes open. I stumbled back, slipping in the snow. His mouth hung open like he was trying to say something, but no sound came out. His eyes stared past me, not at me, like something behind me had his attention. Up, turned again toward the other car, still running, still empty. Then, without warning, the headlights blinked off, just gone. Now I was standing in complete darkness except for my own hazard lights flickering weakly. I couldn't see the road, couldn't see the woods. Only the faint outline of the overturned car and the motionless driver inside. I backed away slowly, fumbling for my phone to use the flashlight. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped it. When the beam finally came on, I pointed it toward the road where the other car had been, and my stomach dropped. There were no tire tracks, none. Just untouched snow stretching into the darkness. I must have stood there for a full minute, trying to make sense of it. I knew what I saw, a Terra. I heard that engine. But now it was like the car had never been there. The dispatcher's voice came through the phone again, asking if I could see emergency lights yet. I told her no, that I thought someone else had stopped, but was gone now. My voice sounded distant, even to me. Finally, maybe 10 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed through the trees. A tow truck and a sheriff's car pulled up, tires crunching in the snow. I ran to them, babbling about the crash, the man inside, and the other car that disappeared. The deputy looked at me like I was in shock. He shined his light into the overturned vehicle, then turned back slowly. "Sir," he said, "there's no one in there." I blinked. "What?" He gestured for me to look. I did, and sure enough, The driver's seat was empty. No one slumped over. No blood. Nothing. But I had seen him. The deputy asked me to describe what I saw, so I told him the crash, the pale face, the cut, the eyes. He took some notes, then said quietly, "We've pulled a few wrecks from this stretch." It's not the first time someone else reported a body that wasn't there when we arrived. I asked what he meant, but he just shrugged and said, "Snow plays tricks on people." They towed the car away, and one of the EMTs gave me a blanket and told me to wait in my car. I sat there for a long time, staring into the woods, watching the snow swallow the tire marks and footprints one by one until everything looked untouched again. When I finally got home, it was almost dawn. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. My mind kept replaying the image of that man's face, the way his eyes weren't on me, but past me. A week later, I drove that same route again in daylight. I had to. It was my commute. The ditch where the car had been was empty, just a shallow indentation in the snow. But when I looked closely, I noticed something sticking out of the ice near the guardrail, a small rectangular piece of metal. I got out and brushed it off. It was a license plate, half frosted, numbers barely visible. The first 3 digits matched my own. That was the moment I realized what had been bothering me most about that man's face: the shape of his jaw, the cut on his forehead, the faint scar above his eyebrow, the same one I'd gotten from a bike crash as a kid. I hadn't seen someone else in that car. I had seen myself. And every night since, when I drive that stretch of highway, I catch glimpses in my rearview mirror. Faint headlights, always far behind, always following, until I blink, and they're gone.